Not all people possessed by the devil are innocent. In the summer of 2013, 25-year-old John Jenkin from Cumbria, England, expressed fears that he was going to kill his mother. While in his deranged state, he approached a random van driver, put his hands in the air in a surrender motion, and cried out, "I am armed, but it's not in my hands." Desperate to avoid committing such an atrocity, John tried taking his own life. He downed a cocktail of a lot of different things and went into a river. After he was discovered, he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital where staff judged him low risk, then released him. I'm no expert, but I'd hate to see high risk if that's considered minimal. Later that evening, he confessed to a group of friends that he was, and I quote, "possessed by the demons. I am the devil. I need to confess." He said that his mother had become aggressive and controlling after the events of that day. I wonder why. And that same night, his sister Katie had confided in one of her own friends that she was pretty worried about her brother. Well, the next morning, after a brutal argument with his mother and sister, he went downstairs and hit his mother with lots of blows to her head with the sharp end of a weapon. And when his sister came downstairs, he attacked her as well to stop her from screaming. After the killings, Jenkin was found nude, crouched behind a bench, acting erratically. When a police officer asked him if he had taken anything, he said, "lives." Afterwards, a court sentenced him to a minimum of only 12 years in prison. Because that makes sense. In the 1970s, Michael Taylor was an ordinary guy, living in Yorkshire with his wife Christine, other members of the family. Pretty typical. So in 1974, Christine stated to a Christian fellowship group to which they both belonged that his relationship with the leader of the group, Marie Robinson, was carnal in nature. Michael admitted that he felt evil within him and actually attacked Marie verbally, who screamed right back at him. Then she said that his eyes changed to something bestial and he began to speak in tongues. Michael had no memory of the event, something all too common in cases of possession. During the next meeting, he received an absolution, but his behavior continued to become more and more erratic. As a result, the local vicar called in other ministers experienced in casting out demons, and they were like, "We need help." The exorcism, which occurred between the 5th and 6th of October at St. Thomas's Church, was led by Father Peter Vincent, the Anglican priest of St. Thomas's, and was aided by a Methodist clergyman, the Reverend Raymond Smith. Over the next 8 hours, Michael would repeatedly have crucifixes stuffed inside of his mouth while being doused with holy water. According to Bill Ellis, an authority on folklore and the occult in contemporary culture, the exorcists believed that they had, in this all-night ceremony, invoked and cast out at least 40 demons. In the end, exhausted, they allowed Taylor to go home, but they were like, there might be some demonic energy still there. Well, when he got home, he brutally took the life of his wife, Christine. He attacked her with his bare hands, pretty much tore her apart. He was eventually found by a policeman, completely nude in the street, and covered in red fluid. I'm getting deja vu. At his trial, he was acquitted on grounds of insanity and sent to Broadmoor Hospital for 2 years, then another 2 years in a secure ward before being released. Arne Cheyenne Jackson, otherwise known as the Devil Made Me Do It. Well, Satan didn't originally possess him. It possessed David, the young brother of his fiancée. He was living with the couple. Strange things began happening in the summer. David would jolt awake in the middle of the night, sobbing in fear after being visited by a hideous creature that he described as a man with big black eyes, a thin face with animal features, jagged teeth, pointed ears, horns, hooves. Yeah, sounds right. In an attempt to save David from his endless tormentors, Arne taunted the demons during exorcisms. He's like, "Hey, come at me, leave him alone." And the demons were like, "Bet!" Over many months after that fateful day, Arne's fiancée reported that he would go into a trance. He would growl and say he saw the beast, but later would have no memory of it. It was 6 months later, on February 16th of 1981, shortly after 6 p.m., that he brutally attacked his landlord, impaling him in a frenzy as he growled like a beast, and his fiancée watched, unable to react. And the landlord passed away, obviously. And now at his trial, he pleaded not guilty to the charge, and his defense was, well, the demonic entity that inhabited his body caused him to do it. The Reverend Joseph Easterbrook, the Anglican vicar of Temple Church, was summoned on Saturday the 31st of May of 1778 by a Mrs. Sarah Barber. She was traveling and she was like, "Hey, I came across this guy by the name of George Lukins. He's a tailor. he's having a bit of a strangeness about him. He was singing and screaming in various sounds, some of which did not resemble a human voice, and declared that doctors could do him no service. Lukins was then taken under the care of Dr. Smith, among many other physicians who really tried to help him. Sadly, after his 20-week stay at St. George's Hospital, the medical community there pronounced him incurable. Members of the community began to think, hey, maybe this guy's bewitched, and he himself declared that he was possessed by 7 demons, who could only be driven out by clergymen. Well, the good reverend contacted a lot of other ministers, and they're like, okay, let's get this done, and it was published in the Bristol Gazette. The newspaper reported that George, during his alleged possession, claimed he was the devil, made barking noises, was very violent. But hey, with all this being said and done, 7 clergymen accompanied George to the church where they performed an exorcism, and it was pretty intense. The deliverance concluded when the demons were allegedly cast out using the Trinitarian formula, and everybody commanded the demons to return to hell. And then George exclaimed, "Blessed Jesus," praised God, recited the Lord's Prayer, and then thanked everybody. And apparently, after that, he was calm and happy. This next rare and disturbing footage has been released of a woman writhing around on the floor and screaming as an exorcism was performed on her in Argentina. The 22-year-old woman, identified only by her first name Laura, is pinned to the ground as Bishop Manuel Acuna drives the evil spirits out of her. As she screams "no, no, no," and spits and swears at one of the women holding her down, the bishop is heard muttering, leave her now." Before the exorcism, locals gathered at the church in Buenos Aires praying for her soul and redemption, and the bishop told them the demon exists. Laura was then led to a chamber where church members held her to the ground. Local man Augustus Amador Arevalo, who had gone to pray for her, said, "We could hear her screaming and crying and prayed for her deliverance. The demon was possessing her and she was bad. She had to be exorcised. She had to be free." The exorcism came to an end as she suddenly gave a very disturbing cry and then closed her eyes and fell backwards exhausted, wiping away the tears as, once again, the priest was like, "Okay, we're making the sign of the cross. You're good." The bishop's confident that they've recovered a daughter of God. Leading figures in Quebec City during the 1660s suspected an alleged witch, Danielle Vuil, of employing diabolical arts to induce a demon to possess Barbe Hallet, somebody who was working at a manor house in nearby Beauport. Both Daniel and the Hallet family had recently arrived in Quebec at the time. The tiny village didn't really have a lot of folks, like 800, and strange things were happening to the family. How strange? Well, let's see. There was details recorded that you don't normally have for other people, and a lot of the folks treated this particular case of demon possession in ways familiar to them from their country of origin. They appear to have assumed that the demon itself matched the demons of Catholic tradition. So Hallet continued to experience the symptoms of demonic possession for months after the alleged witch was killed, apparently on the orders of the bishop. Now, historians have noted that the end of the ordeal came in the form of an exorcism, or what sounds very much like one, conducted by a layperson using a rib bone believed to belong to the deceased John de Brebeuf, a French missionary who was captured and killed in 1649. The International Association of Exorcists was founded in 1990 by 6 priests, including the world-famous exorcist of Rome, Father Gabriel Amorth and Father Jeremy Davies, to provide training and support to exorcists, and also help to raise awareness of the issue of demonic possession. There's about 250 members from all over the world, and they recently published a report of a significant increase in the extraordinary action of the devil, which includes a lot of rise in crimes like killing. Devotees who were looking for miracles have been the victim of numerous cases of oppression, obsession, and possession. According to the Reverend Andres Lopez, said that the skeletal Santa Muerte, also known as the Holy Death or Angel of Death, is a growing cult that is kind of terrifying in the area and causing a lot of havoc. Well, that's all folks. I've been Alexa. See ya!